Hello, I'm Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, a show trying to make the world safer for ADHDers. I'm a clinical neuropsychologist, and I am the father of two ADHD kids. Well, they're adults now. And I'm married into a whole family of ADHDers, and I've got a couple of people in my own family that I wonder about a little bit. And I've been working with ADHD in private practice mostly for, well, 10 years before that in an institution setting. But I seem to have accidentally found my way into doing mostly ADHD kind of consulting and evaluation and treatment. And today, I want to talk about the single, if there is nothing else you teach your kid, the single most important thing to teach is resilience. Okay? Resilience, that's how you recover when things don't work out the way you wanted them to. That's how you recover when you've had a failure, a colossal failure, or a little bitty one. But that's how you recover. How do you recover from that? Well, there's a whole lot to it, okay? But the first thing is, as a parent, you've got to set your head right. Resilience is more important than intelligence. Believe it or not, it's more important than grades. It's more important than getting into Harvard or Princeton or wherever you think is the most, oh, God, that'd be great. That'd be so wonderful. It's more important than all that stuff, whether they make the team, what their grade point is. Resilience is way more important than anything. It's the key to everything. Nobody has a life that is totally error free. We all learn from our mistakes. ADHDers get more practice with that because they have the kind of brain that isn't really designed, or that this system is not designed for. There are plenty of other systems out there that they would be just wonderful in and have no problems, and we'd all be probably a lot happier. But they do have more problems because of being in this setting that wants people to be quiet and sit and listen and don't speak unless spoken to, and all those other things that we have around. So they have more problems. So they've got to have better skills at recovering from the consequences of those problems. When they haven't turned in their homework all semester, although they've done it every night, you've been sitting there watching them do it, they still need to recover from that, and they need to figure out what to do to recover from that, and they need to learn how to do it and feel better for having done it, having the recovery. Okay, I listen to a fair number of podcasts throughout the day, and there's one, a guy named John Lee Dumas. He's a fellow New Englander, and he interviews people who have been wildly successful. And guess what? None of them made it on the first time. He didn't make it on the first time. He bombed out of law school. He bombed out of real estate sales. But now he's among the most successful podcasters on the planet. Resilience, it's important. It's going to be important it's important for everybody, but it's way more important for an ADHD child than a neurotypical child. Neurotypicals just have it a lot easier because their brain is what the whole system is designed for. So success always, nobody comes out the gate and just is totally successful. Michael Jordan didn't make his high school basketball team the first time, if you can imagine that. And so he had to recover. He could have quit, go home, I'm not going to do this stupid game. I'm going to play baseball. Well, we've seen him try baseball. That was not a good scene. Okay. So you've got to recover. You've got to figure out how to recover when things don't work out the way you planned or the way you intended. Not just avoiding it. No, I'm never going to do that again, but how to recover and learn something from it. That's also surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, if you really think about it, how people develop confidence. Or you think, oh, well, he's confident because he never had any problems in life, you know? Well, first of all, I don't know that there's anybody like that. But the folks who have seem to have the most problems with confidence are the folks who've never been given permission to screw something up and learn how to recover from it themselves. And we know some of those people because they're apparently taking over our government. But that's the last political thing I'll say. But you have to have the ability to recover from when things don't work out right. And that's how you get confident. Oh, I can handle this. Or if we screw up, we'll learn something from it and go on, press on. That's confidence. Confidence is not you never made a mistake in your life. Boy, then, I mean, I've seen that a lot with, kids, what in college. You get these people from these little bitty towns, and maybe the schools aren't so great or the education's not. Then they make good grades, so they get into college, and then they find out that the game is a lot tougher. At an international or a nationally or internationally known college, a university, and many of them can't bomb out of it. I remember one guy in my dorm when I was a freshman. He came in, he was going to study nuclear physics. He ended up switching after 2 semesters, I think it was. Maybe it was after the first one. I don't know. He switched to education and decided he wanted to be a coach instead. Okay, I mean, that's when you have a lot of success and you've never learned how to handle failure. Or I almost never use the failure word anyway, but usually I'm talking, that it didn't work out the way you wanted it to, that you figured you made a mistake or something like that. So I never really talk about failure because, failure usually means you quit or give up on something. And you take it as a life label. Oh, I'm a failure. That should never be the way we look at life. Life is too complicated. There's too much in it. There's stuff we can't control at all. Some of us get sick. We didn't deserve it, but we got sick anyway. Some of us, the economy crashed and we were in a job that didn't have a lot of flexibility. You can't do much about it except look back at it and think, well, next time. You have to make do with what you've got, is what resilience is all about. And this brings up the whole helicopter parent thing. You gotta let them run. You can't overprotect your kid. You can't overprotect your ADHD child. He or she needs to learn from the things that are going wrong. They will never, you can't protect them. You can't keep them from having to go out into the world. I mean, you can try, but then they'll probably come back the next day and say, I didn't like this out there too much. I'm going to stay with you forever. That's probably not what you want. So don't overprotect your kids. They're gonna get hurt. They're gonna fall down. They're gonna feel bad. You need to be encouraging. You need to get them. Okay. What can we learn from this rather than, oh dear, are you hurt? They're gonna understand from your tone of voice and the way you handle them when they're not doing so well what you really think about them, and if they think you need to protect them or they're not going to be able to handle life, that's not a good thing. Okay, they will never develop the strength that they need, and they'll find somebody probably somebody to take care of them, and that usually doesn't work out very well. So let them learn. Don't overprotect them. There'll be mistakes, there'll be failures, there'll be injuries. Just that's the way life is. It's you're not your job to make everything easy. It's not your job to protect them. Well, except within reason. But it is also not your job to make everything easy for them. Oh yeah, just call up the coach and have a word with him about, and then you'll make the team. Never, 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 never do that. Okay. The thing is, if you do that, you get a bunch of people who don't have any faith in themselves because they keep thinking somebody else has got to rescue them. And if you start that very, very early, they will expect it all the way through life. Okay? Your job is to be concerned, but your job is not to keep them from having to deal with the consequences of things. And if you keep trying to do that, if you're a helicopter parent type, and God, I mean, I know we all want to protect our kids. We don't want to see them hurt. We don't want to see them cry. We don't want them to see them disappointed. But sometimes that's going to happen. Okay. And your job is to teach them, show them how to handle that sort of thing. Show them how to handle disappointment. Show them how you handle when something totally goes to pieces, because your kids learn more from watching you than they do from any lecture you've ever given. It doesn't matter if you're really a polished speaker. That isn't what they pay most attention, or that isn't what they learn the most from. So it's not to make everything easier. And just remember, every disappointment, every time something goes wrong, that's an opportunity for them to learn how to handle things. That's, sometimes you're going to lose. Sometimes your team's going to lose. This is going to sound like a crusty old fossil, but there are no participation trophies in life. Okay? There just aren't. And I can remember, Little League Baseball and higher up to, that when we lost, I felt bad about it. But I wouldn't have known what to do if somebody tried to give me a trophy just because I showed up for a game. I mean, I would have thought he or she something was wrong with him. So it's the important thing for you to be able to do is to look at what happened, what the situation is, and see what we can learn from it. Okay, what happened? Do you think? What was wrong? Why was this not? And most things in life, there are lessons you can learn from everything that doesn't work out just the way you wanted it to. So, and your whole family, your culture and your family, the dining room table and all that stuff. That's where you have to be one of those people who values persistence, who values sticking to the task in spite of, problems, mistakes, all the rest of it. That's more important. Perfection is highly overrated. Perfection doesn't teach you much of anything, If you happen to go to high school and you're a freshman and you're 6'10", you may never learn to be a good basketball player because you really don't have to do much to just throw the pass to me. I will put it in the basket and without having to jump. But you'll never be a good player that way. You have to be coached and you have to do the workouts and do the hustle and all the rest of it. So persistence, sticking with the task, and I used Michael Jordan earlier as an example. Well, son of a gun, what did he do? And I think his mama had a lot to do with that because she was a pretty persistent lady, and I think knew intuitively a lot of these things about resilience, and he got his fanny out on the court and started practicing like crazy. And I happened to be lucky enough to go to the University of North Carolina where he played, and oh my Lord, he was good. He was good right from the beginning as a freshman. Okay, and the one of the very important things for you to process as a parent, it's also important. All of this stuff applies to you if you are an adult with ADHD too. Maybe you didn't learn some of this before, but you need to be able to look at yourself and say, I wish I'd known this before, but now I'm going to start applying it to my life. I am going to learn from mistakes, make an effort to keep persisting in spite of errors. I am going to put myself out there and I'm going to work for what I really want and stay with it. That's what you have to do. And you have to learn when you make a mistake, you have to handle it. You have to, okay, I made this mistake. What happened? Why did this not work out the way I wanted it to? What was the problem? And the real most everything we do trying to work with ADHD works easier and better if we have resilience. If we don't have resilience, then we have a kid that first thing we've got to do is talk him or her out of wanting to quit. I think I did a show on don't let them quit, which because that interferes with resilience. If I quit, I never learn how to recover. I never learn how to do the hard stuff, and that's a whole bunch of what growing up is all about. And it's harder and harder nowadays. With everybody plugged into internet like we're doing right now, the internet is wonderful for information, but it's not a very social climate. It's not, I have Facebook friends. Well, fine, but it's not quite the same thing as knowing the guy next door, uh, or, spending time with the neighbors consistently, or, having a good couple of good friends. The research suggests that a lot of people have no significant other people in their lives, no friends, no people outside the family that they have spent any time with. And that's going to be an issue. But all the other things you have to work with an ADHD child on, all of those things require that they have some resilience. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to work with you. They're going to want to quit all the time. And it's hard to get them to come back to talk to you or try something new. And that's how you learn everything. That's how you learn all of it, is by being willing to take some risks. And that's starts with you. Starts with you knowing how to handle things when they go wrong. And we'll be talking more about that as we go along. But the thing you have to do, first of all, is you check your emotions at the door. You're calm, you're reassuring, you're objective, you're strategic. You're not planning how to win this particular one. You want the long one. You want the strategic goal, the goal when your kid is 30 years old. Is he coming home with, his loving wife and 2 or 3 kids, or is it going to be a nightmare that they never want to come home again? That's one of those things that happens. And surprisingly, it happens more with folks who don't let the consequences happen. We protect them and shield them and all that other stuff. They don't like that. Nobody really likes that because they know it takes away their autonomy, their power. So remember that resilience is the most important thing for a parent to teach their child. Doesn't matter, big child, little child, adult, female, male, that part doesn't matter. And it's more important than everything else. Honest it is. You would be amazed at the number of people who are billionaires now. Maybe that was a bad example, but who are very well thought of and happy in their lives and all that stuff. And they came from not a lot. They didn't do real well right off the get-go, and they had a lot of things that we would call failures. Matter of fact, if you talk to most successful entrepreneurs or listen to them, that's most of what they talk about is how they recovered from this or that bad decision they made or thing they did because they didn't know any better. And you've got to be able to do that. And you can start teaching your kid about that right away. It's vitally important. It is, like I say, I think it's the most important thing you can teach your child. And it's important for you to be aware of that and to encourage them to learn from mistakes and not beat themselves up because they messed up or that sort of stuff, to try to stay positive and learn from the mistake. And you model that. You have to model that in addition to dealing with their individual stuff. You've got to, when something doesn't go right for you, you've got to show them how a big person handles things. Okay, that's my little load here for today, and we will catch you next week. And in the meantime, remember, we're all trying to make the world a little safer for ADHDers. And, my website is terrygingrassphd.com. You can sign up for my newsletter. You can sign up for a little interview to see if you want to do coaching. And I work with a lot of adults. My coaching is mostly executives and entrepreneurs. So if you think you might be interested, sign up and we will have a chat. Okay, catch you next time.